Welcome, everybody. Excited to host another session of Real Innovators podcast, where we bring AI mavericks, AI practitioners, AI CMOs who are starting to think about AI in all its various forms. And we're going to have an insightful, wonderful conversation today. We're going to be focused a little bit more on the agentic part of AI deployments. Um, and we've got Wendy here. Wendy is the CMO of Daxco. Kadi Srinivasan, she's a CMO at U.com. And Rachel, she's an AI product marketing lead at an AI company, Snowflake. Very meta, Rachel.
Yes.
So, welcome you all to the show. My name is Sharad. I'm the founder CEO of Vidoso and your co-host today. Vidoso is an AI system for brand-aligned content production, personalization, repurposing. We've built a system that helps you scale brand-aligned content across every single campaign, every single asset, across every single marketer. We've built a system that helps you compress your campaign turnaround times from several months to several weeks. And today, we're going to be talking about, okay, how do you actually deploy AI as a system? So historically, when AI started, very ad hoc use of AI, there's consumer chatbots, and now we're sort of evolving to a stage where smartest leaders are starting to think about how do you deploy AI as a system where you can drive repeatability, consistency, and just a systematic use of AI across the team. So welcome everyone to the show. Um, Let me, maybe just start with how have you thought about just AI as systems internally? What are your sort of high level sort of point of view on just the way AI technologies are evolving in the world of marketing and what you might have sort of seen or done within your marketing team? So maybe Wendy, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think so. I believe my team was probably pretty early in the adoption of AI. I was lucky enough to be part of the CMO Coffee Talk and really exposed to a few other forward-leaning CMOs and did some early training about 2.5, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago on AI use, and really championed it within our team. Brought in trainers, brought in tools, et cetera. Fast forward to where we are today, we're really leaning in on Agentic across our organization. As a matter of fact, just did a session earlier this week where we had each team do a roadmap planning session for the next Agentic AI workflows in each of their teams for us to prioritize at the kind of marketing executive team level as we go into our 2026 plan for our roadmap. So we're leaning in. We're leaning in hard. We're kind of through the trough of disillusionment on use of it, and now coming out the other side to like more practical, you know, um, built as part of our workflow processes.
Awesome.
Kadi, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would love to. So I think I like the trough of disillusionment a lot. I think all of us are kind of going through that. We kind of think of agents as two separate things. One is there is a what we call a knowledge agent, and then there is another one called an action agent. So we've put in place a lot of knowledge agents, which are basically, thinking about SEO, finding SEO keywords, content creation, all the basic things that I mean, a year ago it wasn't basic. Now it's become very basic. So the knowledge agents parts is those are the easy ones because you can really prompt it in the right way. You can provide it the right kind of data and context engineering and all that kind of stuff. And so that's been very useful for us. And my company actually we are a no code development environment that allows other people to build those agents. So it's easy to dog food our own product. What we don't do today at U.com is the action agents part, where agents are actually taking action on your behalf, such as like if I were to take a blog post and then be able to convert that into a video that I can put on LinkedIn and then track the metrics of how that LinkedIn is performing and then send that back into some kind of a prompt engineering, all of that kind of stuff we don't do. We do rely on a few agents outside for specific use cases. So we use 11x, for instance. We use Relevance AI for a couple of bespoke agents that we've built. The problem with that is exactly like Wendy was saying, there is a massive amount of like grind you have to do to make it work. You have to first get the context engineering right, which is very hard. Secondly, you have to get the feedback back into the system, and that feedback almost always involves some kind of human in the loop. And that's where it's like, okay, we use all these agents. Sometimes it's easier to get the humans to actually do the thing rather than trying to figure out how to get the agents to do the thing. So we are in the process of figuring out how do we do this, how at scale.
I would say it's very similar from what I've witnessed so far at Snowflake. I'm brand new to Snowflake, but also what we were building at Intel, which is my previous org, where we had agentic systems in place to kind of like streamline our internal programs, right? Like how we were becoming better marketers, doing better customer research, building more powerful marketing, even messaging, I mean, and even how we were connecting the dots on a lot of our revenue marketing systems, right? How we're doing persona, propensity modeling and things like that. But we had not gotten to the execution layer of what you were just describing, Katie, where it's actually the agents are making those decisions in real time, taking the feedback and using it. And at Intel, you know, I think the breakdown was really in the data, right? Like where things were so siloed. It's one of the things I'm like the most excited about coming to Snowflake is like, obviously Snowflake is a data platform, right? So some of our internal tools that I've already started to play around with have access to all of the data in one place, and it opens up some pretty magical opportunities for agentic AI.
I think you nailed it, Rachel, in terms of data being like you got to have the data right. You got to have the governance right. You got to have the, you know, the people part right. You got to have the data right. There's a lot of things that go into actually making the agentic work.
So, thank you all. I think just to sort of lay the groundwork in terms of the definition of agentic, contrasted with, let's just say, the first wave of AI, and practically, as you're all like, practically implementing, AI solutions, agentic solutions. Caddy, you talked about sort of separation of knowledge agents versus sort of execution and action agents. Um, Love to hear your thoughts on that piece, which is how do you fundamentally think about agentic systems and how are they really different from, let's say, just using AI?
Yeah, I can share some thoughts, and I'd love to hear from Wendy and Rachel as well. So the way that I think about it right now is we in marketing and especially we have a lot of these workflows that were typical SaaS workflows. So you go to an event, or sorry, you host an event, you have a bunch of follow-ups from that event, and you lead nurture those events, and then you kind of get them to close, something like that. Those are all what I would call the typical workflows. And what we have tried to do in the first iteration of this agentic software is just bolt on agents on top of those existing workflows, like you would with a human. We just kind of assume that instead of a human, we would just employ an agent and use the same workflow to get the agent to do the thing. I think what we are realizing now is some of those workflows actually don't need to exist. I think we can delete those workflows and actually create new ones with the power and the scale that AI has. So an example is, so we have this, our founder is very famous, and anytime he posts things on LinkedIn, he gets an average of about 60 likes. And what we have realized over time is that a lot of the people that interact with his profile are actually one ICP fit MQL. So we have now a way to scrape those people, categorize the ICP MQLs, and then use that to go back and think about how to target them on LinkedIn or to follow up with them in a different way. That thing never existed before. We couldn't do it, not with humans. Now with AI, I think now it's not perfect. That's the problem. And back to what both Wendy and Rachel were saying, the data is so important. It's not perfect, but I feel like there's enough green shoots here that we can create more workflows that didn't exist before with the power of AI.
And I love, oh, sorry, go ahead, Wendy.
You go first.
Caddy, I love what you were saying about the like workflows not needing to exist, because I think that's really like the breakthrough right now is it is not rules based anymore, right? Like that's what we've had for so many years in marketing. And that was the best we could do, right? With our maps, with any of our automation platforms. But like those rules don't need to exist anymore because agentic AI is actually taking the context and making decisions. So you don't have if this, then this, right? And that is kind of a paradigm shift. And a lot of our technology that we use now, honestly, isn't quite ready for it. I'm curious to see like how the maps or the CRMs of the world are going to kind of keep up with that new structure.
I think you guys have both nailed a couple of things. So one is, picking the workflows, right? I think it was really easy to want to replace a person or a job or whatever with the agentic workflows. And what I've discovered is the ones we're prioritizing are a lot of the things that we didn't get to before, but we always wanted to get to,
Yes.
or new workflows that have emerged because of AI. As an example, one of the workflows that we always wanted to get to, but product marketing never could, was go listen to all of the sales calls and the support calls and pull out the top questions that customers ask and make sure we have really great content on our website that answers those questions for when people are doing research pre-MQL, when they fill out a form, right? Well, what sped that up as an urgent need is, the agentic search asking longer form questions and needing to find an answer for that. And frankly, like in one of our product areas, a competitor was doing that and answering those questions on our behalf and stealing that traffic to their website. So AI created this new opportunity, and it also created this new, need. And so, what I think of is, picking those workflows and then figuring out how to create them is, can you operationalize something that essentially operates on its own? Can it learn from data and self-learn and, and optimize, right? And then can it orchestrate steps across maybe multiple GPTs or multiple business processes to deliver an outcome? So in the example I gave you, go into Gong or Kaya, pull all the stuff, go into, for us, it's, our support platform, go in and pull all the content, analyze that content, and escalate out questions that we haven't answered in our existing FAQ on our site, or content gaps in long tail SEO, draft the content, push it into Slack or some other tool for approval, or publish it straight out to WordPress and push a link out for review and approvals for somebody at the human in the loop to say, yes, publish. That's actually a real workflow that we're just finishing right now. And I think, so for me, it's that kind of fundamental: can it operate on its own? Can it be continuously learning? And can it create something and self-optimize? And will it orchestrate across multiple GPTs or multiple processes? That for us is what we're trying to get done.
I think you also hit on something so interesting, Wendy, that there's a lot of fear around agentic AI replacing roles, and that's not actually what's happening at all, right? It's enhancing roles, and there's even new use cases that didn't even exist before because of AI. So I think that's just a takeaway for folks who are worried about AI coming for their jobs. Like, it's actually just going to make your job a lot easier, right? It's going to change the description of how you execute, but I just love that example.
Yeah, I think efficiency is better than replace.
Yeah. I'd love to key off of on that, because that's such an interesting debate that we can have, as well as a lot of I'm trying to hire some roles and we can't find the people, because there needs to be a blend of this idea of understanding deep systems and technology, being able to understand the whole ecosystem of marketing, content and brand and demand gen, at least at a surface level for some of those things, and then be able to execute a system.
Yeah.
Not just activate a channel, but execute a system. And that's actually, that kind of skill set is what I see as the future of marketers. And that doesn't exist today. So I give this example a lot. I hired this kid from college, and she's 22, just graduated, but she has a data science degree and she's interested in marketing. She's crushing it. All she does for us is create agents. And man, she brings her data science background, technology background, learning ability, and surface level understanding of marketing to create these things that are. So I also completely agree with you, Rachel. I don't think the question should be about, is AI taking away jobs? I think it's about, how do you prepare for using AI to either get better at your job or do a different job that is going to exist in the future.
I think the 22-year-old that's crushing it, I love that. I believe right now what will happen is people that were maybe doing RevOps jobs that are already system thinkers, they're already like data thinkers that might deeply understand marketing, will switch to being these kind of AI operators. And that's what I'm seeing in my org. I have
Yeah.
a big team in India, and we decided to hire our AI ops person in India. And we interviewed a lot of people for that role. And because it's sexy, people really want that job, right? So we had a lot of applicants, because people know that they get these skill sets that they're going to be set because this is the direction, this is the future, right? And I think that's where we ended up is you got to have somebody who's a systems thinker. You can't just take a content marketer and that's fantastic at content and say, now automate content marketing processes. They might struggle because it's not that it's that little bit left brain, right brain, but it's more like that systems thinking. I know how
Yeah.
to think about workflows. I can think about interdependencies. I can think about where to automate versus where a human needs to be like, that's a little bit of a different skill set.
For sure. And I think there's magic when you have that like strategic marketing understanding and the systems thinking, right? And
Magic.
that is not like a lot of humans, but that's, I think, where the future of a lot of marketing roles are going to be because, AI can also just amplify a bad strategy, right? Like easily if you don't understand the strategic side. But I think it's an exciting development for marketers.
Yeah. I gave a talk yesterday and I called it multi-threaded marketers, and basically
I
that's the
love that.
Wendy,
Love it
what you're
too.
talking about, the systems thinking. I also think it's an interesting discussion to have around this idea of taste, and
Mhm.
judgment. I know taste has become a common thing, but I think of
Yeah.
taste as the aesthetic, visual kind of a thing. But Rachel, I think what you were saying, which resonated with me, was this idea of judgment, which is basically, are you doing common sense, practical things and do you have enough of that to drive some outcomes?
Right.
As long as you have the systems thinking and the judgment, then you are a powerhouse.
Yep.
Caddy, look, you're resonating with me here again because I'm thinking back to just 2 years ago, we decided to move from Monday to Asana. And the person that we had managed that project had very strong systems thinking chops, but didn't necessarily understand the workflows. And so what we
Mm.
ended up with was an over-engineered Asana process, like dramatically over-engineered. Right? So we had to peel it back. And I think that is parallel to what
Yeah.
we're seeing now with agentic processes. Sometimes you got to have like that, the judgment aspect of that only comes from either having a good systems thinker, they have good judgment, but like that level of like understanding of the business.
Yep.
Right. Which is why I don't think sticking somebody in the IT organization and calling them, prompt engineering and say that's not going to work.
No.
I've heard people say that, oh, IT should be in charge of AI and whatever. I mean, come on, guys. There's a reason why all of us, there's a reason why CMOs own their MarTech stack, and marketing operations exists because it's not just about like the IT process. It is the business process. It is the art and the science together, right? And AI is no different. We're going to have to really own these workflows. And like you said, marketers are going to be doing this. It isn't going to be some IT department that's going to come in and help you.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for failure.
For sure.
Over-engineered Asana.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
Love
I
that.
agree with all of you in terms of there's a TAM expansion of agentic use cases. There's an opportunity for us to displace and almost remove and eliminate some of the workflows that actually don't serve us, but we were sort of servile to it because there were no other options, and all of that was sort of constructed around just people. So there's a lot of automation potential, both in terms of research, ideation, and knowledge. The use case that you shared, Wendy, as well as sort of execution. Um, the question I have is the following. Sounds like you're all building agentic systems in-house, right? In the old world, and we call it the old world, in the world of MarTech, well, the analogy is all your nurture workflows that you built on top of a marketing automation platform, right? You build that, but you build that around a platform that was, and the platform was purpose built for marketers, whether it's HubSpot or Marketo and so forth. So that's one. You built all of that system on top of a purpose built platform. And second, those were pretty binary systems. Either the workflow worked or they didn't work technically. Like either the workflow execute or it didn't. Um, in today's agentic world, my first question is, what is the platform around which you're building these agentic systems? And two, who is responsible for maintaining, evolving, adapting, evolving, and sort of debugging these systems when it's not binary whether it works or it doesn't work, right? You talk about feedback, learning, self, self-learning and so forth. Like, who's monitoring that when the actual users are, your right-brained marketers separated from actual systems builders?
Well, first of all, I think HubSpot and Marketo, they better look out, because I think leading edge CMOs like me are thinking about ripping them out, and I am. And I think new players out there are going to be way smarter about how to build, a new CRM, a new marketing automation platform. And companies who are, realizing that they're very deep into a very expensive spend for something that is monolithic are going to replace it with non-monolithic systems. So I think that's for sure. Now I'm sure that HubSpot and Marketo have started thinking about this. Maybe HubSpot, maybe not Marketo. I don't know. They don't seem to get anything right lately.
I think they're trying. They're trying.
But I think they're probably thinking about this. I saw John Miller is, bringing
I
out.
was just going to mention him, Wendy. I hung out with him last week. I've got some intel for you.
I do too. I freely admit I might be trying to be in his developer program for his new app so that we can be an early beta tester, because I want to know, do I have an alternative or do I build it myself? Because I guarantee, like, we're not getting the value we need out of HubSpot. And because of Agentic AI and other AI stuff, the number of records in our marketing automation platforms is going through the roof, because we are able to really understand our ICPs in a much more narrow way and build our lists in a dramatically different way than we were a year ago. So our database health is way more complete, than it ever has been before, which is fantastic, right? But that means it's a cost implication. And so I think HubSpot better watch out. I would love to see what John's going to do, and hopefully I'm going to be in his beta.
That's exciting.
So if my HubSpot rep is listening, you better get scared. And then also, you asked what platform, and I would say we've tried a bunch of things. We have settled on N8N as our orchestration layer. There's plenty of choices out there. Just did a collaboration exercise with our PE firm, and that's the orchestration level tool they're recommending as well, because it has that right combination of can do a lot, but is relatively easy to use for all of us who are going to be novice at agentic orchestration. So that's where we've settled, is using N8N. We also use Make. We've used Zapier on some stuff, et cetera, but N8N seems to be the platform of choice for us right now.
Well, and Wendy, what you mentioned about the programs themselves and what John is building, what I find so exciting about that is, like, we talked about this earlier, and Katie, you mentioned it too, with like the workflows and the rules-based systems that are kind of going out the window. What I love about this new era is that, like, we're not just doing personalization like we did in 1999, right? Like, where it's like insert first name, or like even some of the like early adopters of AI for personalization were like scraping random fun facts from your LinkedIn that like nobody's actually, that's not personalized, right? But what I think we're moving into with all of these new tools, including what John is building and other things that I've seen, even homegrown systems, are that we're like serving up relevance, like more, and that's much more important than the personalization, right? It's like, what is relevant? And we know that because we know where you're at in your journey. We know what you're interested in. We know what kind of tools you've been evaluating. We know what kind of questions you've been asking. So we're going to like come to your inbox or whatever channel that you're experiencing with relevance to your exact pain point in that exact moment. So that dream of like serving up the right content at the right time in the right place is actually possible now, where that was something that we were just doing a lot of like engineering to try to get close to with some of the older things like the HubSpots or the Marketos or other automation systems, where it's rules-based best guesses rather than like actual relevance in real time.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually removed HubSpot and put in Salesforce.
Oh
don't
my
know if
goodness. Katie, did your marketing ops team love you for that, or?
I mean, pretty much everybody hates me right now, but whatever. No, it's I think it's underlying everything that Wendy, you said, and Rachel, you said too. There really isn't a modern AI native system of record, or at least something that has enough scale to handle the kind of things that we want to do. I think at one point there was a company called Unify that had started to build a system of record in a different way, but I don't know where they are at right now. I was very excited that maybe they would be a third player in this duopoly of Salesforce and HubSpot.
Well, maybe it'll be John Miller. I don't know.
Maybe it's John Miller. Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the system of record concept also is so different, isn't it? Like we used to be happy with storing leads and accounts, and now it's like, no, I want to know what all these people did, either on my own properties or some other property. I just want to know as much as possible about these people. So is it a system of record? Is it a system of intelligence? Like, what is it? Like, so they're starting to blur the boundaries between just storage and synthesis of that storage. And that's what I think we need to be aiming for. And if whoever is listening out there, like marketers are hurting for real clear understanding of the right kind of data. So please help solve that problem for us.
I will say, Caddy, like shameless plug for Snowflake, but we have an internal tool called Raven GTM that I spent all morning playing around with. That is so awesome because really it takes the power of like Snowflake intelligence, which is able to access structured and unstructured data from everything that you have in Snowflake and provides that contextual answer. So I can go into Raven GTM and say like, hey, tell me all about our accounts that have been searching for X, Y, and Z. And it's using internal information. It's using our CRM data, our map data, everything about our product, but also searching externally so it can do some forecasting about different ICPs and what they would be likely to look into. It's pretty dreamy. I think we'll start to roll it out to other customers. So if you're a Snowflake user, it's pretty exciting stuff.
Wow, that does sound dreamy.
Yeah.
Rachel,
That
I
sounds
loved
like
your
a lot of
point
fun.
on. Go ahead, Wendy.
Well, I was gonna say Rachel's job sounds like a lot of fun.
It's so fun. I'm like very excited about it. Yeah.
Looping back to what you said earlier, Rachel, which is, we are going away from the world of if-then programming to, something that can intelligently resolve those conflicts and actually just make like right local decisions, right? And that's what agents are. They're able to make sort of autonomous decisions within guardrails. Um, I'll come back to your point about relevance and personalization. Because in a lot of these conversations, the conversations actually becomes very technical because you're all AI forward marketing leaders, and this is the phenomenal age to be building, right? So we get into the technical details. So we'll talk about that, but we'll at some point we'll also zoom out and actually talk about, okay, well, what does it take to win as a marketer in this world where the GTM is noisy and content is abundant, and it's harder than ever to get buyers' attention. But coming back to the technical parts, right, which is my question still remains, right, which is whether we are using an Zapier set of tools where you do some local, agentic orchestrations. By the way, we are a big fan of Unify. It's an app. Now, look, we're an early stage company. If someone were to come to us and say, hey, look, you have to build, hey, you build hubs from scratch on end-to-end. Like, we have our business objectives, right? We have our goals, right? We're not going to go and rebuild our accounting system or our marketing orchestration system, right? Vast majority of the marketers don't have the time or the wherewithal to go and build and these like, complex agents and then maintain them and debug them and so forth. So what do we advise them, right? How do we bring the whole sort of ecosystem, further up, who don't have the wherewithal to go and build these systems internally?
That's where there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for, I've heard it from Wendy and Caddy making a call to any MarTech providers listening or developers out there. There's a lot of opportunity because, yeah, there has to be some out of the box solutions, right? We can get scrappy and have fun with it. And we all should for our professional development and also because it makes more sense to build things internally sometimes. But also, like to your point, not everyone has the resources and time to do that.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah. Please go ahead, Wendy.
Well, if we follow the MarTech landscape over the last 10 years, you guys remember the chart? Who is it that puts it out? Used to be at
Scott Tinker.
yeah, and it used to look like here's about 4 or 5 sections in this vendor. Now the vendor list is so tiny you can barely read it. You have to get a magnifying glass out to see like who they are because there's just thousands of MarTech vendors. What do you think is going to happen? I think all of them are going to pivot. They're going to bring AI and AI workflows into their tools, and a bunch of new ones are going to try to come in and play, and they're probably going to come in and go out of business as fast as you could expect. Like it's going to be a massive era of innovation, and not everybody's going to make it. And so, like I think as a CMO, you got to be willing to experiment, and you got to be constantly checking on the financial health of your vendors, right? And you got to have a whole process to, experiment, test, and learn, bring things in, take things out, and replace. I think marketing ops becomes, you know, 10 times more value than it ever did before, because they're going to be in charge of what you said earlier, Shad, keeping these things smart, keeping them functioning, swapping in new tech as it emerges, swapping things out, managing the constant learning and the constant feeding of them. It's like, this is going to be a really interesting time period. If you're in marketing ops, like, your career is going to go nowhere but up, because that kind of role is going to be incredibly important.
Yeah. 1000% agreed. And I think there's something to be said about I think we are being exposed to almost like point solutions with all of these agents right now, which solve very specific use cases. Like I do cold outbounding, there's an agent for that. I do LinkedIn content scraping, there's an agent for that. But at some point, Sharad, exactly to your point, if I were a CMO, I'd want to come in. I am a CMO, sorry. I would want to come in and say, what are the 15 agents in a box that I can use as a starting package?
Yeah.
And how do I hook them up? And how do I continue to maintain it? What's the kind of the cadence of governance? How do I contain it? What are the rules behind it, et cetera, et cetera? And then you can start to build more and more cascading agents on top of it. But that existing thing, I feel like all three of us on this call at least are figuring out what is that base primer of agents that we want to build. And I think this is such a great opportunity. I still think there's a lot of opportunity for like a Zapier to actually own that space. And
Yeah.
or there's an opportunity for Snowflake, because you guys are sitting on so much data. It's easy for you to create the agents that sit on top. So I'm sure that we'll start to see a lot of movement from existing incumbents to go into that. It just depends on how flexible can they be to ingest external data and internal data and then put that all together.
And I think for vendors too, it's a paradigm shift, because you both know this struggle as CMOs, but every vendor historically is like, you have to log into this dashboard or this URL to use my product, and that's not going to cut it anymore because of this agentic new like system that we're in, right? So you have to be able to decouple things and actually like have those really solid APIs or things that fit together.
Yeah.
So I think you really touched on it there, but I think that's going to be a big change for the business model and how MarTech vendors are coming to market. And to your point, Wendy, there's going to be a ton that aren't going to make it. Like, we still are in the trough of disillusionment, right? Like,
Big time.
maybe not even there yet, to be honest. Like, at the market as a whole, I feel like we're still at the peak of the hype curve, right? It's going to get real before it kind of evens out.
I think I'm just a few months ahead, because I was feeling pretty disillusioned a couple of months ago. I discovered that one of our AI workflows was kind of set up and ungoverned, and had been publishing a bunch of hallucinating content. And I was
gosh.
And listen, content is a two-way door. You can pull it down, fix it, and post it back up, or you can get on and edit it. It's not a one-way door. Like, once you get it out. And so it is a relatively low risk thing to do. And for us, this was a bunch of like long tail content we weren't even exposing up on our blog. It was just sitting behind the scenes in the index for Google. But I was still kind of like frustrated of, how did our governance fail? How did our process fail? Right? That, one of our team members used an untrained GPT and set up an orchestration, was doing all this. Like, how did that happen? Right? So I was in a little bit of I will say, slightly pissy mood about that for a while. And that's why I keep saying I was in the trough of disillusionment, because I was like, governance and process and approvals, it's like marketing runs on some of that stuff, right? Yeah. And we all want to be risk takers, we all want to be agile, etc., right? And so AI should help us with that, but like, be careful. Like, I've told my team, please do not be hooking up any agent to your desktop and exposing all your data. Think smart. Like, there's a lot of things you just need to think smart about. And it's easy when you're in a mode of go faster, do more, et cetera, to make mistakes. And they're going to happen. And the person who did this is not in trouble. It's just like, hey, judgment. To our conversation earlier, judgment.
I think that the idea of shadow AI and the proliferation of people using AI that's not approved or like not set up in the right way, it's a real thing. Not just in marketing, but I'm seeing this across everything. I mean, our company sells mostly to CIOs, which is a different audience, and they struggle a lot with like, how do I control this? Yeah, like the governance of AI is a real big issue. And I think it's interesting too, what you said about uh, what you said earlier, Wendy. I keep hearing a lot about evals, and I've started to think more about how do we as marketers apply the idea of evals to the work that we do? And it's not as straightforward, right? Because a lot of what we do, it's in our heads sometimes about what is the right tone that something has to be, a right kind of I don't know. I don't know how to say it. How should a certain message be articulated? It's all in my head, and for me to be able to say that in a way that's programmatic and help somebody eval the system, that's turning out to be way harder than I expected. I can look at something and then have the judgment to say that yes or no and do this other thing, but to put that and codify it into a thing and call it an eval is hard.
I agree with you. And I think that's one of the things that is the coolest about your newest offer, Sharad, like with Vidoso actually, is that like consistency of like taking the judgment or the taste or whatever we want to call it, right, of the marketers and actually being able to mass produce, not in a negative way, but like churn out things that are actually pretty close to being on message. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, Sharad, but that's something that popped into my head is that
No,
you actually have nailed that pretty well, I think, with your new offering.
no, Rachel, thank you for that, comment. I just thought of that, right, in terms of eval. So eval, Caddy, you're right. It's a very complicated topic. Because the other thing is eval for the sake of eval. If you do an eval, and first rule of doing an eval is you have to use a different LLM. If you use the same LLM, you'll actually frequently get lies in the in the validation. So for instance, we have this auto validation built in, and if you use the same LLM, it'll say that, hey, I applied the guideline of no M dashes, uh, and if you see, there is actually M dashes.
I've seen
Right?
it.
It
I've
just,
lived it.
right?
Yes.
It just straight applies. So you
Yeah.
have to so you have to use different, but you have to use different LLMs. But even that is not enough, right? So what you just told me, right? If you keep telling me that, every time, there's a problem, this problem or that problem, that is not agentic. So what we have done is, so, we are very use case specific. We're about brand aligned asset, persona aligned asset, messaging aligned assets. So we have a suite of sub agents. So each agent is tasked with just one properly scoped task at a time, which is your job is to go and just evaluate the writing style, and not just evaluate, recursively improve the asset until you actually meet a threshold score, right? So not just eval, but actually the actionability and actually evolving the asset such that it actually meets the guidelines for, right? Same thing for
Love that.
differentiation. Same thing
And
for
you're
persona.
using different LLMs for that, right? Like with those different rounds,
Yeah, so we use
different
LLM. So
models.
by the way, so Sonnet 4.5, or Claude Opus, great for content. ChatGPT is good for answers and research. ChatGPT is not good for, it's good for conversation and interactivity, but not good for sort of, content asset generation. We use Gemini a lot for like judging, because, we are multimodal, so we have creative models, we have video models and so forth. So we need multimodal models. So we use Gemini for a lot of that eval and judgment. We're also putting in place like Brain Trust, which is again a system for like evals and so forth. But our goal is that number one, it has to be able to recursively improve the asset, and two is build that explainability back into the UI so that the user knows or the marketer knows, okay, well, which guardrails actually fired and what did you actually, which ones fired, which ones did not fire, how persona aligned is it, which ones did you actually miss, so that at least I have some guidance on improving the content,
Improving. Yeah.
right, and
I love
create
it.
sort of alignment and trust.
I,
um,
I
yeah.
think that you've nailed the example. We said earlier, there's going to be tools that emerge because people are not going to be able to build it themselves, right? Think about, I can think about the 6 or 8 content, use cases and workflows we have. It's a lot to keep them
Yeah.
trained, keep them functioning, keeping them not breaking. But also, it can be expensive if you have to have like a enterprise level account with each of those LLMs to ensure the data privacy or to ensure that, the team, you can see the team utilization, et cetera. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a really good example of a use case where, vendors might win, like be it yours, be it Writer, something else. But also I think it's a good use case for tools like, I don't know if you guys have played around with Abacus yet, but Abacus is a multi-LLM orchestration tool that allows you to essentially buy credits from each LLM in a governance layer so that you can use multiple LLMs to manage stuff. And I think that's probably going to be a use case that a lot of us are
For
going to
sure.
think about, because I think we're all struggling with our budgets as it relates to all these LLMs and all the
Yeah.
agents too. For me, I'm making my budget assumption based on ditching some software. Like, can I ditch Outreach? Outreach, if you're listening, you better watch out. Can I ditch?
Wendy's on a warpath.
The list today, I love it.
Right. Well, somebody needs to say it, guys. Some of these softwares, they've become buggy, they've become expensive for what they do, and all they do is some orchestration that we can build ourselves. So
Yeah.
I think there's really good use for orchestration that is, again, multiple steps, multiple use cases across, like you described, Sharad. And there's other orchestrations like, let's just get rid of it. It's costing us too much, and it's overbuilt and it's not performing. HubSpot.
I will say that's one of the coolest things I'm excited about, like having just joined Snowflake, is like our Snowflake Intelligence offering does a similar thing to what you described, Wendy, where it's any LLM of your choice. Essentially, you're paying Snowflake for the credits that you're using, not the LLM vendor. And it's all in that one space with like the security and governance and structure that you're getting from Snowflake as a data provider. And I think you're right. That's definitely the future. I think having multiple enterprise licenses to all these different models is not sustainable long term.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're all right. I think the future is, I think, a multimodal, but also multi-model. And part of what it is, each model is sort of evolving on their own trajectory, on their own goals, on their own path, and and they're all launching new capabilities. Like Claude launched skills, right? They've just launched memory. They've launched skills. ChatGPT has, OpenAI has some agents and so forth. Gemini is like very, very multimodal. So to lock yourself in with one of them, let's say you buy, ChatGPT for enterprise, then you're locked out of all the innovations that are coming out of other models. And there is no, it's not one size fit all. Like, Claude is definitely better at like incontrovertibly better at content than ChatGPT is, right? So each of these have flavors on how they were trained, what their objective is, and again, also the objective of the platform, which makes me come to this point, which is, ChatGPT doesn't really have to win your renewal. Honestly, they really don't care about marketers. They don't, right? Their product is not built for marketers. There's nothing in the UI that is built for marketers. There's no form factor that is built for marketers. And marketers is like 0.01% of their market share, right? So they're going to follow their own path, right? You might want to use the custom GPT for something, and they might continue the product or discontinue the product. But when you use an out of the box solution that is purpose built for marketing, as an example, they have to win your renewal. They have to evolve the platform. They have to win the hearts and minds. They have to drive adoption, whether through the platform or through AI forward deployment engineering. Because if they don't, they're going to be out of business. Like they would lose their renewal, right? So I think there's a little bit of that, right? Which is these general purpose platforms, they have their own objectives, but I think out of the box solutions have to be both multimodal and multi-model, give the users the option to choose different models, but also they can sometimes be opinionated for that use case, meaning they know that, okay, for this use case they've tested a specific model and they can invoke that specific model and really shield the marketer from having to think about those technical things, which goes back to sort of the larger point and the final point here and the topic of discussion is the role of the marketer still is to, okay, you have to be able to win buyers attention, win audience attention, hit them at the right time at the right place, right, with relevant messaging such that they turn into leads and progress down the pipeline, right? That is still the primary goal, right? That is why marketing teams are hired, and that's the objective of the CMO. So let's talk about that in a little bit, right? So there's finite amount of attention, right? Finite amount of attention across various channels, across various buyers, right? How do you all think about, right, all the agentic orchestrations, new workflows, decommissioning old workflows? But on the other end, it is finite amount of attention, right? So how are you sort of solving that piece of reaching to buyers with like personalized, relevant messaging that stands out and helps you sort of win the battle against your competitors and category noise?
That is the trillion-dollar question, I think. I I don't know. Like I think it's this is the thing that keeps me up at night. I won't lie. It Everything that I thought I knew about demand gen, and I, grew up in the demand gen route. Just in the last 1 year, I'm having to rethink every single thing about it.
Yeah.
Google doesn't work anymore. Paid ads don't really work anymore. LinkedIn really doesn't. Let's be honest. It's too expensive. And now I'm having to rely on newsletters. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
I'm having to do billboards, and I don't think that is good for demand gen, but it's every, and we're getting into GEO stuff, but it's unclear or TBD whether that can achieve scale.
hmm
Although I know that's the future, we have to invest. So it is quite messy. We are experimenting. I think that's the bottom line for me is we are aggressively experimenting and hoping that some, like the way that we build our funnels and our systems now will make some things clearer and at least bring in the hygiene of moving people through the funnel and sticking and that kind of stuff. Yeah, not a very convincing answer, but
I
we're
think
figuring it out.
I think it's something we've touched on so many times in this conversation, like the relevancy and the humanness. I think it's almost like ironically, in this era of agentic AI, what's going to make brands stand out is their ability to connect with other humans. And I mean that by like messaging that resonates, that is actually relevant. It's no longer about how big of a budget you had for ad spend or how much tech you could afford in your stack to optimize workflows, and therefore you're reaching more people. It is truly more about relevance. Like you mentioned it with newsletters and with GEO or whatever acronym we want to use for it now. It is really like, am I answering a question? Am I solving a problem? And it is in a lot of ways bringing us back to marketing basics, like, the fundamentals of how do we do good marketing. And it's less about like the slick tech stack because everyone has access to that. And AI is democratizing that in a lot of ways. But how do we stand out is by actually having a good story to tell and actually addressing something that is a challenge in the market. And I think that's kind of exciting. And it is kind of a paradox, right? Of like the technology, but also it's the humanity that will make us successful.
Really good point.
Brand has become more important than ever. Like, I
Yeah.
think we all know it. I think more when we started talking about content marketing 10 or 15 years ago now, right? It was because we were thinking about HubSpot inbound model of get as
Yes.
much content out there as you can to prove credibility and to get yourself as many keywords as possible. Now I think about content marketing as the biggest extension of the brand and brand storytelling and customer narrative storytelling and PR and all
Yeah.
the things that I'd kind of, didn't have time for before now have become top priority. So product marketing,
Yeah.
brand marketing, content marketing, like all the money's going to move there because
Plus, yeah, plus events. Who would
and
have
events,
thought?
live events,
Yeah.
in-person events, customer advisory boards, user
Yeah.
groups, intimate dinners, influencer events, road shows, like shifting the money,
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Like ad spend has to come down because it is way less effective. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And all of those things are the human bits, right, Wendy? Like that you just described, like at the end of the day, humans still want to buy from other humans, right? And so like, and I kind of love that for marketing. Like, sorry to the big ad industry, right? But like, I kind of love that we get to be more real with our conversations and like spend more of our budgets on the things that you just cited that matter and that make real connections rather than just like a bunch of paid placements.
I don't know. My budget's not going down. My budget's going up. I'm
Yeah.
shifting my budget from paid to content, from paid to events, from paid, like from SEM to advertorial, to your point,
hmm
Caddy, about the newsletters, right? I'm adding event marketers. Like I need some headcount. People need to do that work. You can't go from, X number of events to Y number of events without people to do that work. It's people intensive work. These roles aren't going away. Product marketing isn't going away. Sure, they might have a GPT that's producing their battle card, right? But then writing great brand stories or great, product stories or differentiating the product with, amazing content is even more important. Fantastic demos, great videos, like all those things even more important. So I don't know. That's my take.
This has been so amazing to hear. It's like therapy. I feel so much
Validating,
better.
validating.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
Wendy and Rachel, you're both right. I think brand is the new demand. That's what we hear a lot. Kathy, one of our advisors, ex-CMO of TalkDesk, and she was an SVP at Salesforce, talks about sort of, positioning brand as brand gen, in front of, yourself internally, because, obviously the
I'm
C-suite.
stealing it. I got a staff meeting on Monday. I'm stealing it.
Brand gen. The brand is important, storytelling is important, human connectivity is important, right? I think digital ad spend less important, new channels are emerging, and which is what marketing is, right? There's constantly new, right? When everyone's zigging, you have to zag to sort of, command the attention and trust and authenticity. Well, I think it was wonderful to have all of you on the show. Fantastic insights. You are all builders. I love it. You're building, you're on the ground, you're experimenting, right? You are shattering sort of the the old walls, Wendy. You certainly so, and I love it, right? And I'm like happy for all those founders who are building AI native marketing automation systems. It's a big undertaking. Um, but good to meet you all, and good conversation. We will sort of distribute the clips and all the follow-up materials soon. Thank you for joining.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much.
All right.
Lovely to chat with you all.
Yeah.
Bye.